This is Tyler with TJack Survival. Let's talk about sleep systems and ways to build comfortable sleep systems over here in the super shelter. Okay, so we're inside of what is what is called a Morris Kohansky super shelter. And all that really is some sort of a wood frame, and in this case it happens to be out of birch with something holding it up in the middle. And there's platforms that are raised so that we have a cold sink so that the cold air can go down, the hot air can come up. And then it's covered in plastic, and in this instance, reflective material and parachute. This is an older shelter. It's been here for many years. You can see from the rust in the stove, it's seen better days. But without getting into too much depth on that, I really want to talk about the sleep system, and I will do another video on just the super shelter. So we've had a little bit of melting. I kind of leave my little fall raven jacket on top of stuff, so if anything does melt at night and then it freezes in the morning, I can just pull the little chunks of drops off. But just talking about what you need in the winter as far as a sleep system, this is my opinion on it, but you at a minimum need something to keep the water off you, because it's inevitable that if there's any melting or any snow coming down, it's going to get hot and then it's going to get cold. You don't want that water to penetrate your sleep system and then freeze and create cold spots, or when you get in there and you thaw those cold spots out and create water, creates a massive issue. So I personally have a Gore-Tex shell in the form of one of these old military bag socks, if you will. I have a 2-layer sleep system from Snug Pack. I've got military other ones, there's Wiggies, there's Feathered Friends, there's a ton of different things you can do. And the more insulation, the warmer you're going to be, which is a positive when it's cold, a negative when it's hot. And then probably the most important part is the mat. So let's talk about what I've got here. These are 3 unlike systems. They are 3 components from different systems. And I did that just to illustrate the fact that you can mix and match just fine. So everyone, for the most part, knows what the military 3-layer system is. This is the Gore-Tex shell from one of the older ones. It works great because at nighttime, you can lock this whole thing down if you need to keep rain off your face. You can even put a stick in here to hold it up, or a little pole or whatever. Or you can unlock it, or I will put it up around my face or around my eyes so that it keeps the sun out and then let my mouth breathe out of a little hole right there. Now, in addition to that, I've got the Snug Pack. This is the SF bag, and it's just 2 bags into one, which is good because in the winter you want more insulation, and in the summer you can go down to the warmer inner bag, or if you go to a jungle or something, you can use the much lighter outer bag. But together they work great for the winter. And this is the same sleeping bag I've been using in my other videos. I know we did some we built a wiki up. If you check out TJack Survival wiki up, this is the same bag. Okay, the next thing I've got, and I also forgot to mention my liner, the next thing I've got is a whoopee. This is just a poncho liner, but it's got so many things that you can do with it. And in my instance, I like to use this as a pillow. If it really gets cold, you can put it between your sleeping bag and your liner system, spread it all out for an extra layer. But it's really nice to have something like this. Just roll it up, and all mummy bags have like a pocket hole right here. What I'll do is just slip it up in that little pocket hole, and then I'll put my head on top of it. And if it gets cold, I can put my head underneath it and move around. What I forgot to mention, and is probably a really key component with regards to building your own sleep systems for winter, is this sleeping bag liner. All this is, I think it's a Swedish sleeping bag liner. I don't know where it came from. I got it at an Army Navy surplus store. But it's basically a polar fleece sock. I can pull it up to my shoulders. I can pull it tight if I want to, then my arms can't come out, but it'll keep me substantially warm. The super valuable part about it is, I don't know about you, but I'll turn to my left, I'll turn to my right, sometimes I'll turn in the same direction, and this liner will slide inside of my bag. So I'm not gonna wake up with an upside down bag or my zipper in a funny spot or whatever. It gives me the ability to toss and turn a little bit without, you know, jacking my stuff up. The other thing is, when you sleep at night, you should have in the winter a base layer, like your polypropylene layer or your wool base layer with some wool socks that are dry that you can switch out. So if you perspirate into your socks during the day, you put a different set of socks on at night that are just your sleeping socks, and it gives your feet the ability to kind of dry off. Also, if you put your day socks by a fire, not too close, they will evaporate and be dry by the next morning, and gives you the ability to kind of cycle it. So when you're sleeping at night, you have these voids by your feet. For some reason, your feet or your knees, the back of your knees, there's always that cold spot in your sleeping bag. The sleeping bag liner has a tendency to fill that cold spot up and kind of get rid of that coldness, and it feels more like a blanket and less like a sleeping bag. Now, I argue the two or three most important parts of a system in the winter is: 1, Gore-Tex to keep you dry; 2, a dense sleeping bag with enough loft to keep you warm; but 3, probably the most important part, is your mat. Okay, the reason being is, when you hold your hand out in the air, it's only so cold. When you put it against an object, it conducts your heat away to that object substantially faster and gets really cold really fast. That's the same principle as when you're sleeping in a sleeping bag and you compress all the loft out of the bag. Now you're touching, in this case, cold wood, and you freeze your butt off. So I have this Fox Outfitters sleeping mat. Now, I don't know if they did this on purpose, but this Fox Outfitters sleeping mat fits these military issue shells perfectly. You can stick it right inside there, kind of roll this out of the road, and it will fit perfectly inside that shell. Then all you have to do is put your sleeping bag on top of it. This way you can't fall off of your mat. Also, when your body heats the mat up, it keeps it warm and you're not gonna roll off of it. You can put a whole system like this inside of a hammock or whatever you wanna do. A little bit about this ultralight mat. It's the Ultralight 100. I've had this mat for, I think, about a year now. And I've used this traveling across country in the back of my vehicle where it was too hot to sleep at night in order to keep the heat from getting to me. And essentially, when I was driving through, I think it was Arkansas last year, the road heat underneath the vehicle, I have a Sequoia, was just super intense. And I was able to lay this mat down in the back of my Sequoia and sleep on top of it, and it was a thermal barrier that kept me from overheating. So that's how I tested it in the heat. I also tested it in hammocks while I was out there, used it in some pretty swampy conditions, used it on a canoe trip. Then now I'm in northern Canada. It's extremely cold, and I've been sleeping on this 3 days in the back of my truck to get up here, and I think I'm 4 days of being in these conditions with sleeping on this every night. I've blown it up once and it stayed inflated the whole time, but it's just a really nice ultralight, shockingly comfortable sleeping surface. And again, one of the most important keys to the whole system, because it picks you up off of the cold ground and gives you that insulating layer. So let me assemble this again real quick. And as you can see, fits perfectly inside of one of these Gore-Tex 3-layer systems. Throw my Snug Pack on it. You can have whatever type of sleeping bag you've got. Go get yourself one of these, what are these, polypropylene, polyester liners. And then when you leave at night, just close it on up, connect your stuff like that. And if you were sleeping inside of a snow shelter, you'd want to zip this all the way up, Velcro it shut. Now I don't have to worry about coming back to something that is melted on top of my sleep system during the day. You can have a whole mud puddle on top of this thing. I'll just brush it off, crawl in my bag, get my fire going, and crash right out. All right, guys, hopefully that's valuable. If you got questions about my sleep system, leave them below. If you're interested in this stuff, I'll leave you some links. If you want one of these Gore-Tex layers, just go on eBay. I don't really have a link for that. I'll find something for the Snug Pack and that Fox Outfitters mat. I'll throw that down at the bottom. Thank you for watching TJack Survival.